Most people believe that good financial outcomes come from smart strategies, from complexity, from finding something others missed. They look for optimization, for leverage, for insight. But in reality, many of the strongest financial outcomes come from something far less impressive. A rule, not a clever one, not a sophisticated one, a simple rule that feels almost too basic to matter. This is uncomfortable for people who value intelligence, because rules feel unsophisticated. They don't signal depth. They don't showcase knowledge. Yet rules outperform strategies precisely because they remove the need to think at the wrong time. The biggest financial mistakes rarely happen when information is missing. They happen when emotion is present. Emotion doesn't ask whether a strategy is correct. It asks whether discomfort can be avoided. This is where smart strategies break down. They rely on judgment in moments when judgment is weakest. It is decided in advance. It does not negotiate. It does not adapt to fear. That rigidity is often mistaken for weakness. In practice, it is strength. Most people assume that flexibility is an advantage, that the ability to react improves outcomes. But reaction is often just emotion wearing a rational mask. The more freedom a strategy allows, the more room fear has to interfere. This is why complexity often underperforms simplicity, not because complexity is wrong, but because humans are inconsistent. Rules compensate for inconsistency. They create boundaries. They limit damage. They enforce participation. One of the most common patterns in personal finance is the cycle of intention without execution. People know what they should do. They agree with the math. And yet, action is delayed, or adjusted, or abandoned. The problem is not knowledge, it is timing. Good decisions are often obvious in calm moments. Bad decisions happen in emotional ones. They take decisions out of the moment and place them into a system. A system does not care how you feel today. It executes what you decided when you were calm. This is why rules outperform intelligence over long periods. Intelligence adapts. Adaptation sounds attractive, but persistence is what compounds. Compounding does not reward cleverness. It rewards continuity. This is deeply counterintuitive for analytical people. They want to improve, to refine, to optimize. But optimization often increases fragility. A system that depends on constant adjustment is sensitive to error. A system that depends on repetition is robust. Rules create robustness. They do not aim to be optimal in every scenario. If a strategy cannot survive volatility, it cannot compound. If a person cannot stick to a plan, its theoretical superiority is irrelevant. Rules increase stickiness. They reduce decision fatigue. They remove friction. This is why simple financial rules quietly outperform more sophisticated approaches. They work not because they are smarter, but because they are harder to abandon. Another overlooked benefit of rules is how they change your relationship with time. When decisions are rule-based, time becomes an ally. You stop asking whether now is the right moment. You stop searching for confirmation. You stop waiting for clarity. You act because the rule says so. This removes urgency. Paradoxically, it also removes delay. Without rules, every decision feels like a verdict. With rules, decisions become routine. Routine is powerful. It normalizes action. It reduces drama. Most financial harm comes from dramatic decisions. Rules prevent drama. They make behavior boring. And boring behavior is often profitable. People underestimate how much money is lost, not through bad ideas, but through inconsistency, through starting and stopping, through reacting and reversing. Rules smooth behavior. They do not eliminate mistakes, but they prevent clusters of mistakes. Mistakes clustered in time are destructive. Mistakes spread out are survivable. Rules spread mistakes out. This is especially important during periods of stress, when markets fall, when headlines amplify fear, when uncertainty dominates. In those moments, intelligence often works against you. It generates scenarios. It imagines worst cases. It finds reasons to pause. Rules ignore scenarios. They execute. This is why simple rules often outperform smart people, not because the people are wrong, but because the rules are indifferent. Indifference is underrated in finance. It allows systems to function without emotion. It allows exposure to continue when instinct says stop. When outcomes are poor, it is easier to accept them if the process was followed. Regret attaches more strongly to discretionary decisions than to systematic ones. I followed my rule feels different from I made a judgment call. The second personalizes it. Personalized losses are harder to recover from. They affect confidence. They increase hesitation. Rules protect confidence by externalizing responsibility. You are not reacting. You are executing. It keeps short-term outcomes from reshaping long-term behavior. Many people abandon good strategies not because they fail mathematically, but because they fail psychologically. Rules are psychological tools more than financial ones. They shape behavior. They reduce variance in decision-making. They protect against self-sabotage. This is why rules matter more than ideas. Ideas inspire. Rules sustain. A powerful idea without a rule rarely survives stress. Simple rule without inspiration can last decades. Longevity beats brilliance. Thinking is best applied when designing rules, not when executing them. Once a rule is set, thinking should step aside. Design happens in calm. Execution happens automatically. Most people invert this. They execute emotionally and think afterward. Rules reverse that order. Structure outperforms intent. It outperforms discipline. It outperforms motivation. Because structure does not rely on internal states. It exists regardless of mood. Participation is the prerequisite for compounding. There is another reason. Simple rules outperform complex strategies. They scale. A rule that works with small amounts of money often works with larger ones. A complex strategy that feels manageable early can become fragile as stakes grow. As amounts increase, emotional pressure increases. What once felt tolerable becomes stressful. What once felt flexible becomes overwhelming. Rules absorb that pressure. They do not ask you to feel comfortable. They ask you to comply. Compliance is easier than confidence. This is why many people abandon strategies right when they begin to matter. Not because returns disappoint, but because emotional load increases. Rules keep behavior stable as conditions change. They also make progress measurable. You either followed the rule or you didn't. There is no reinterpretation, no narrative adjustment. This clarity reduces self-deception. It prevents hindsight bias from reshaping memory. Over time, this builds trust in the process. Trust reduces second-guessing. Second-guessing is where damage occurs. Another quiet advantage of rules is how they interact with aging. As time passes, energy fluctuates, attention changes, priorities shift. A system that requires constant engagement degrades. A system that runs on rules endures. This is why long-term outcomes are often driven by habits formed early, not by intelligence applied late. Rules turn habits into infrastructure. Infrastructure does not depend on motivation. It functions in the background. And background processes are what compound. This is not financial advice. It is a way of thinking about behavior, structure, and why simplicity often wins in the long run. One final point often goes unnoticed. Rules reduce identity conflict. Many people tie financial outcomes to self-worth. When results disappoint, they internalize failure. They question their intelligence, their discipline, their judgment. Rules separate outcomes from identity. If a rule was followed, the outcome is data, not a verdict. This emotional separation is powerful. It allows learning without shame, adjustment without self-criticism. Over time, this builds resilience. Resilience allows exposure to continue. Exposure is what allows compounding to work. Complex strategies blur this separation. They invite interpretation. They invite personalization. When something goes wrong, it feels like a personal failure. This accelerates abandonment. Rules slow that reaction. They make it easier to stay the course, to observe instead of react, to continue instead of quit. This is why rules matter more than brilliance. Brilliance fades, rules remain. A good rule does not promise maximum returns. It promises survivability, and survivability is enough. Because survival allows time to do its work. Time is the most powerful factor in finance. Not intelligence, not insight, not effort. Time only works if you remain engaged. Rules keep you engaged. That is their quiet advantage. This is not financial advice. It is a way of thinking about behavior, structure, and why simplicity often wins in the long run. Another overlooked strength of rules is how they reduce cognitive load. Every decision consumes mental energy. They turn many small choices into one prior commitment. This frees attention, not for more finance, but for life. Ironically, people who rely on rules often think less about money day to day, and that distance improves outcomes. Distance reduces interference. Interference is where emotion enters. Rules also create asymmetry. They limit downside more than they cap upside. By preventing catastrophic behavior, they preserve optionality. Preserved optionality compounds. This is why boring systems often outperform exciting ones. Excitement encourages tinkering. Tinkering introduces error. Rules discourage tinkering. They do not need to be perfect. They need to be followed. In finance, follow-through matters more than formulation. A mediocre rule executed consistently often beats an excellent strategy executed intermittently. This truth is uncomfortable, but it is observable. The market rewards durability. Durability comes from structure. Structure comes from rules. This is why simple rules continue to outperform smart strategies over time. As markets evolve, products change, and narratives shift, rules provide continuity. They are anchors in changing environments. Without anchors, people drift. They chase themes. They react to noise. Noise is endless. Rules cut through it. They do not claim insight. They claim consistency. Consistency is enough. Over long periods, enough becomes significant. This is why, despite endless innovation, the same simple rules continue to work. But because human behavior is, and rules are designed for humans, not markets. This is not financial advice. It is a way of thinking about behavior, structure, and why simplicity often wins in the long run. Most financial decisions aren't about information. They're about how you think. If this perspective resonates, you can subscribe to the channel for future videos.